Hello, I'm live again, day number 4 of the 30-day video challenge. And so I tried to do my Facebook Live with my phone, and somehow I kept being disconnected every time I tried to explain something about what I wanted to say. So I wonder what's right about this. Usually stuff like that doesn't happen by accident, and it's like I wonder if the topic is something that it's been like highly charged for a lot of people. So I'm going to try again on my computer. And it's about the book, How to Get Out of Debt, Stay Out of Debt, and Live Prosperously. I cannot remember the author of the book, but I can definitely send a link later if somebody is interested in it. And so it's basically about like how often it's a really great book where it says it explains a lot of stuff of what debt is, how do we get there, what excuses do we use, and it's basically like a program in a book that also I haven't been there as of yet because I've been started reading in it today. I'm getting there. I'm starting at chapter 7, so I've read 6 chapters today. And it explains, and it's written so well, the different circumstances of people who don't have ease with money. And a lot of the times people that don't have ease with money how often people that don't have ease with money results in debt. And if it's not debt, it's like a mindset of scarcity where you try to keep ends meet. You try to make the months meet month after month, but there's never an ease, and you're trying to get by scraps. Even if you're not in debt, like how often do we go to the store and we don't buy or we don't choose it because we don't have the money? So this is a mindset where there's no ease. And if you are in debt or not in debt, like if that's your mindset, then there's no ease. And if I look at my life, I started to, one of the things that is for me important, and if you want to change anything, is to make it public, like to not hide it, because if something is hidden, it cannot change. So I have been on and off in debt for like the last 2 years, I think, which is very interesting because I used to have always money, and I used to have always a lot of money. And then somewhat 3 years ago, I met this guy, and it turned into a very abusive relationship. And with my eyes wide open, I gave him my money. So, which is, of course, it's not as simple as this, but for this is the details of the story is not really required here. And when I look at it right now, like, I definitely had more ease with money before, but I definitely had I never looked at my bank account. Like I never really knew what I was spending a month. I never knew what was coming in. I just knew everything was always like okay, and I was spending a lot. Like I always have been like a joyful, wanting, big spender. And when I've been reading through the books, like all the reasons and justifications we give for spending money is, I've earned it. If I give money, people will like me. And the list goes on. And not that the reason on itself is important, but just like, what if we can start to recognize that it's just another reason. It's just another justification. And then one of the things that I've been wondering and looking at the bigger picture is why do people choose to have, why is that existing that mindset of scarcity and having difficulty with money? And if I look at, for me, it has been, so to look at my situation before where I was having more ease, there was a lot of guilt, shame, and blame going on for me and my family because I had money. And even like with my boyfriends, I always was, you know, the privileged kid, like the privileged chosen one with all the money. And when I was spending money, it sure came up a lot with awful lot of shame. I never really totally acknowledged it or shared it with anyone, but it was always there. And on a certain point when I was living as a hippie in Australia, I was still pretending that I didn't have any money, and I was freaking lying about it to everyone because it was like hammered in my head because of my grandma, like you shall not talk about money. And it's so interesting because that same twisted stuff that I have been hiding for so many years, and when I started playing with the tools of access, like all that stuff came like crumbling down, and I started having fun with money. So what happened at a certain point, I told someone, and that someone was then my boyfriend, and he was like, well, I think he energetically was picking up like, well, she's not having her money, I'm gonna have it. And so basically what happened is that he was being and telling me everything that I wanted to hear. Yeah, he was telling me everything that I wanted to hear. And because this is like, how does that happen? How does one gives his money away with and like being abused at the same time and like not knowing? So this is one of the things, like how often do we put our heads in the sand like the ostrich? And this is what I have been doing for all my life, like la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, because all the points of views that I had, that I grew up with from my parents and my grandparents, none of them involved fun and ease. There was a lot of control, blame, shame, guilt, and to look at like the bigger picture, like with money, why like I don't have any ease with money is, so it's, for me, it's the perfect like justification, like to not choose anything, like, oh, well, I don't have the money, so I cannot choose. And if I have to be really honest, because I have been playing with getting out of judgment of me, is I wondered like how often have I set myself up with the so-called choices that I wanted to choose, but I couldn't choose because I didn't have the money, so I could prove to myself how wrong I am. And like how often do we like set up traps for ourselves? In what form, one or another, it's like a bunch of blinders that you have put up. So you basically set yourself up for a trap, so you won't change and you won't move. And this is what I have been doing for like the last 2 years, and it's been like this last week where I've been like really looking like how often have I trapped myself in choices, or like I want to choose this, but then I can't choose this because I don't have the money, so I must be wrong. And knowing and acknowledging this, and then even like, okay, so everywhere I make myself wrong for that, like, okay, to be really diligent to like uncreate and destroy that. Because what I've noticed from time to time, and especially with debt, like when you make yourself wrong, it will not go away. You won't see it, and you will never see the rightness of it, like what's right about it, and it won't change. And what I noticed with debt is that the debt even gets bigger and bigger. So like being in the last 2 years on and off with this, I have been playing with tools that I've learned from Access Consciousness, and I've already like made like a list with the stuff that has been really helping me to change it and to have more ease with money. And for me, one of the biggest is the 10% account, because the 10% account is, it's like an account that you put on the side as an honor of you. And so all the money that comes in, you take away 10% of that and you put it on that account, and you never spend it. So it is there. And it's for me, to learn to have ease with having money. Because to look at like my wild ride with money is like, I was most comfortable with being uncomfortable with money. And how do you know that? Is like when you keep choosing the same thing all over again, even though you say this and that, if you keep choosing the same thing all over again, it's something that you're comfortable with. Otherwise, you wouldn't be choosing it, even though if it doesn't make sense. It's like, you know, me being for 6 months in an abusive relationship, like I was comfortable being in the uncomfortable relationship. It was my comfort zone. So to come back to the money is, so the 10% account, and I've seen it, what it created for me when I started using it, which was, it was creating more money. And I've seen it, what it did when I was taking money from my 10% account. I started like almost immediately creating more debt again. And like in the last months, I was cheating my 10% account. So I was like, okay, so this month I'm going to do 5%. I noticed that doesn't work either. And there was still like some unclarity where I was sort of like paying my 10% account, but I was always paying my bills first, or like paying half of my bills first and then paying my 10%. That was actually 5%, and then do the rest, which there was still a freak. Then I've noticed that doesn't help either. And this is, I don't know if this comes from this book that I'm telling you about, or this is from a tool from Gary. When you pay your bills first, it basically means you honor your bills. And it basically is like a message to the universe, let's send her more bills. So this is like, what if we start with a 10% account, and always pay your 10% account first, even though you go in your mind and you think there is no money to pay the rest. Because I was reading this in this book first. You cannot expect for things to change when you keep doing the same thing again. And this guy talks about that, like, if you have been for years struggling with money and you are like having beyonds, you are almost like suffocating, you're almost on the verge of a breakdown, to give yourself, after all this time, so you take all your bills and you put them in a place that makes you happy. And for 1 month, you put your stuff in there, your bills, and then you give yourself a month of free worry. And so I totally lost my other thing. Oh man, I totally lost my train of thought. How does it get any better than that? So I was talking about, oh, no, totally. How does it get any better than that? But anyways, so the 10% account, and yeah, like, so why is to pay yourself first? It's basically like to give yourself like some honoring, to honor you first instead of your bills. And oh, and now I get it. Like when you keep choosing the same thing all over again, you keep to choose to pay your bills first, and you get more bills. So what if, even it sounds fucking crazy, the 10% that you don't spend, what if like making the choice to just do it different, even just for 1 month or 2 months, and to start pay that 10% first. And this is exactly what I did this month. I was like, fuck that shit, I'm not doing that with me anymore. I'm going to do, because like I looked at my past expenditures, which is something that I want to talk about as well, is like I am not going to half honor myself at 5%. I'm just going to do it, even though I have 2,000 euros in debt. And I'm like, okay. And so this is the beginning of change. And so I've only been doing it for like what, 2 months, 2 weeks, because it's since this month. So I wonder what will it create. And like, even like with this Facebook Live, I know that a lot of people are sometimes looking for the magical answer. There never is, and there's never one way for everybody. Like, so like, if this is something that really speaks to you, I would start playing with some stuff from this book, and just see, like, follow it. Like, don't be too hard on yourself. So this is one thing. Like, so the 10%, we got like the excuses that you give yourself for spending money, and then like the 10%, and then there is like the guilt and the shame that comes up with the word debt. And Gary says this really nice, so Gary Douglas, so what if instead we call it debt? Because there's so much charge on that word that we pick up not only from you, but from everybody around the world. And think about all the people that don't even mention they have debt. And I notice for me, when somebody is like really hiding it, I am more intensely aware of it. So what if instead we call it past expenditures? And past expenditures is basically expenditures that you've done in the past. So if even when you say it, it makes you want to laugh. Oh, it's just some expenditures that you did in the past. And this also will give you a relief of being in that constant judgment that you are of you, and that you are of you in regards to your past expenditures. Because face it, like I have the same when every time you go into, because you have to go into look in your bank estates, like your bank account, and for now I have quite some. And it just for me it makes you go into a freak. So, and a freak out we're like, how am I going to do that? I had it this weekend as well. I was like, fuck, okay. How does it get any better than that? So this is another thing, and I wonder if if there is something else that we can you know what, another one that really helped me. So let's, for example, you're in debt with a few bank cards, or like with one card. And I remember I was sort of like, I was paying off my past expenditures bank account, and it was like what we say here in Flemish, like it's butter on the stove. So my money was basically always gone into the debt. And this is like how weird my brains were working, that I couldn't even see that for me it would create more ease if I would open a separate bank account to another bank. Because every time I was going to that bank card, all that stuff came up, and it was really uneasy. And I noticed, I can't even remember if somebody told me that or it just came up. Anyways, it was a brilliant idea. So I went to a different bank, and even immediately, like going to a different bank with people that look at you different, that look at you like you're a normal person, and then the money that comes in, you can put it straight away to that bank account, so you can start seeing it again. You can start seeing it grow, and then gradually you can make like a deal with yourself that like every month I'm going to give 10% to my honorary account, which is you and me. I'm going to give 10% to pay off my debts, and that way you are actually empowering you that, hey, you can do it, you can create this, you created the debt, you can totally create it to be out of the debt. And then even like being in that lighter energy will basically like give you more clarity of what else is possibly what else is possible for you to, you know, create more money with ease. Because that is the thing, like as long as you're in that heavy energy of judgment, and like you can tell, like it's heavy, it's contracting, like your body starts hurting. Sometimes you don't even feel that you have a body, and you're constantly in your head, and you're constantly like judging you. You won't see much possibilities. And when you're gonna start making these small choices, you will give yourself more ease with having money. And even if you're not in debt, like you can still use that 10% account and see what that shows up for you. And last but not least, so I've been giving you some tools, and what I would really recommend, if you're in debt or if you're not in debt, you would like to educate yourself more with money, you like to have more ease with money, is to read this book, like How to Get Out of Debt, Stay Out of Debt, and Live Prosperously. It's an amazing, you can even like, I've been reading it online via Kindle, so you don't even have to like wait that long. You can just like start reading it immediately. And he explains it so clear, like it's like so it's a guy that has been in debt on and off for so many years, and he has helped people with this program. So I'm really looking for what this book else has to offer, and what tools he has to offer. And I definitely will do another Facebook Live on that, because it's fun, and just to get this out there. There's no reason why we should hide this, and why we should feel wrong, or and even like think there is no reason for you to live here, because this is one of the things that came up in the book with his students, let's call them, is some people, like at the end, like if you have, like for me it's just like, it's like 2,000 euros, which is okay, but if somebody is in debt for like 20,000, 40,000, 80,000, 100,000, 200,000, it's like, I can imagine that you feel so drowned, and you feel so obliged to the creditors, that you think there is no other option for you than to be dead. And for sure, I have had those thoughts as well, like, fuck, I don't think, and this is in my head, and like maybe you think like 2,000 euros, this is like fucking peanuts, but in my head sometimes it's like it's just like such a big amount, and of course it's all like a matter of perspective. Yeah. Okay, so this is it. Like, I hope you really got something out of it. For me, it's really fun to do this. I love reading books, and I definitely like talking about the books that I read, and the clarity and more possibilities that it gives me. So yeah, how does it get any better than that? And what else is possible with money I have never considered before? Bye.